Welcome everyone to part 5 of train wrecking. I am building a Trainwreck Express in a different format to everyone else. Go back and watch parts 1, 2, 3 and 4 to fully understand where we are up to, what we've done before, the whole process and ethos behind this particular build. We've started the chassis wiring, and in today's episode we are going to finish all of that off. Okay, next job on this Trainwreck build is, I've got my IEC socket now in the chassis, so we need to get that wired in and that job done. So make sure that you can see what's going on down here, like that. Okay, so we've got 3 terminals on the back of the socket, as you all know. Top one here is your safety earth, which we'll do last. Middle one is my neutral, which is my blue wire. And the bottom one is my live, which is my brown. So I'm going to start with those two, and then we'll do the safety earth last. And the way I want to do that, how neat can I make that look? I bring it up here, that side, and then I can twist it in with the brown. Something like that, and then we'll get some heat shrink. I've been using loads of heat shrink lately, absolutely tons of it. Keep ordering more, so we'll go for about that much. Come up, come round the corner like that a little bit. Roughly place you where I want it. That's looking nice. Get you in done. Okay. And what you can do is, while the heat shrink is still hot, you can just kind of hold it into position and it will lock itself. It will cure itself. There's going to be a word for that. It will hold its position once it cools down. And that's how you get them nice. Oh, there you go, that moved. But that's how you get them nice and neat into the corners of chassis, is you let it cool down like that. Up here we're looking. Okay, so now that's in place. Now, because I might be having to might be wiring this to 240 volt, I'm not going to heat shrink any of these terminals just for the moment. I'll just tack solder them into place, and that means 3/8. If I do need to redo it, it just makes it a bit easier. And we'll do the same with the neutral. Safety earth is green with yellow stripe. Okay, and then that can come along and over to my dedicated earthing point, which is one down in the corner. So this is not the permanent install of this main socket, but it'll do for the time being, and then we can make it all permanent just before the amp sells. Right, okay, so they're all in, that's all done. Tidy up all my offcuts. And now we can move on. We need the live from the mains transformer, which is brown. That's got to go up to our switch. For the time being, I'm just going to bring it around this side and do it to here. Yeah. We can make it all permanent later on. Here we go. I've got to go up to this terminal here. We'll make sure we leave enough length, just in case. Okay, 3/8. And again, we'll just tack solder that for the time being. Tidy that up. There we go. Right. Okay, I'm happy with that. If this was the final version, then I would be doing all of that properly, but because I know I'm going to have to undo some of it, we might as well give ourselves that flexibility. The next job will be, can we get the board in? We can either do the output sockets, which I don't want to do just yet. Yeah, let's do the board. Right, so onto my board then. I've got some underboard connections that I need to make. So the easiest way I do that is I just follow, or I use a pencil and I draw on the underside where I want those wires to go. One goes there. My preamp is here and here, preamp ground to there. Then that goes on to there, goes on to there. Okay, and over here, these two need connecting together. This then goes on to this side. That goes over to my bias circuit, so that's my power ground. I'm going to need a wire from here to there, so I need a jumper up there for my totem pole. These two connecting here. So I draw these lines on and then I use those as a roadmap for applying my wires. I used to do everything overboard apart from ground, but the way I'm choosing to do things at the moment is a little bit different. So bias is here, and that needs to go to the top end of my bias pot there, which is that one. That's all of them. The rest is just my tone stack wires. So that's all my underboards, and then the next is flying leads. So let's go ahead and do these. So let's start with black. And I'm just going to go ahead and make all these connections on the underside of the board, and I'll do that in time lapse. All the underboards done, my flying leads as well, and I realised I'd added an eyelet to the board here, which wasn't on my drawing, so I had to spend some time working out what I'd done that for and why I'd done it. It's because B+1 here, this eyelet, there's not enough space to get the three wires in, sorry, plus the two, because of the size of that cap, so I'd added a satellite eyelet there to link to, which is what I've done there. So that's all fine. This board can now be installed into the chassis. So it's a big moment. It's a really big moment. The sun is bright today. I'm really sorry if the image is a bit strange, but it's fine. But that can now go in. Look at that. Yeah, that's good. I am pleased with that. You know, it's 4 wires because we've got the sensor tap as well. If we get our hardware, we can make that permanent. Or actually, is that yellow long enough? I don't think that yellow's long enough. I think we're going to have to extend that. Because that yellow there is going to this resistor. And I think it needs to be, realistically, 1.5 inches longer. Let's fix that now. Whilst I'm thinking about it. And it's easy enough for me to do. So pull that yellow one out, 7 inches long. So let's do one that's 10, and that's then going to give me ample. There we go, that's better. Can we just get that to go one more twist? Yes, we can. Excellent. Quick fix. Ba-bum-bum. Okay, board is in. Woo! Big moment on that, look. Our board is in the chassis and we can start wiring up. Right, so loads of progress, absolutely loads of progress. The board is wired in. So I've wired in the output sockets, the B+ rail, that's all done. The presence control, the tone stack, V1, V2 and V3, and my negative feedback to my 16 ohm socket on the back here. What I'm going to do now is a test that a lot of people fail to do when they're building amplifiers, right? I'm just going to buzz the board out and make sure that any connections that are on the underside of the board, whether they terminate under the board or somewhere else, I need to check that they are still good and strong. And you do that with your continuity setting on your multimeter. So if it beeps, we're good. So the first one I'm going to check is from this node here. So this is B+1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. B+5 feeds this point here. And that beep tells me that the wire connecting this eyelet to this one here is good. There's another one from the top of this 2N2 down to here. And that's in place, and that then goes on to the input grid there. Excellent. That's good news. Next one over on this side of the board is the ground from here over to here. Oh, there it is. It is in place. You can see I did these grounds over the board. As we move along, the next one is the high voltage wire from this resistor over to this point here. That's still in place, and then it should go onwards to this point here. Yes, it does. Listen to that. Good news. The next one is the blue wire. The input grid wire for V4 comes from here, and V5 comes from here. Excellent. Got the grounds that are here, and they hook over to this point, then over to here, and then to chassis. Excellent. Final one is my bias supply from here up to the junction of these 220k resistors. Excellent. So that's all those. My high voltage rail, it's a bit of a weird one. We've got this point here. So we've got this, this point here goes to here. Now it goes to here. Right, and then this one goes to here and onwards to here. And also, oh, I can't test that one because I've heat shrunk it. But that's good. So that's all of those wires tested. Is there any others that I'm missing? Oh yeah, there is. It's this point here to this point here. Yep. Excellent. None of the wires came out during that wiring in process. And it's as easy as that. Next job for me in this, I've got 3 jobs left on this particular build. That's how close we are. Job 1 is to do my output socket wiring, my 8 and 16 ohm sockets on the back here. Now, the wires from the output transformer are a little short, so I'm going to have to splice in some extensions up to my sockets. No problem at all. Then I've got to do my heaters. So I've got to add my heaters connecting up V1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Also up to my dual light. I've got a 6.3 volt dual light up here. A Fender style one because I prefer those. And then got to bring in my heaters from here. Then I've got to do some flying leads. I've got my input wire from my input jack to V1A. And then I've got a wire coming from the volume control over to V1B. And then I've got 2 ground wires to do. I've got to ground my preamp ground up here, and I've got to ground my my bus up here to the same point. And then it's done. That's how close we are. And can I get this finished today? Probably not. But we're not far off. We are not far. Oh, well, yeah. Then I've got to hook up my 2 high voltage wires to my rectification diodes. So we are really, really close on this. So let's do the next job, which is the speaker jacks. Spin the chassis over. Now, this is the problem with using reclaimed transformers. Is that the wires might not be long enough. Now, we worked out that orange was common and yellow was going to be our 8 ohm and green is our 16. Now, if I remove these little shields here, we may only need to extend the green wire. Orange and yellow come through. Spin you back around. So we're going to have on the back, this socket will be 8 and this one will be 16. So my yellow is going to come through and it's got to come up to that terminal there. Well, yes, there's ample space there, absolutely ample length there. And same from, sorry, yellow does that. Orange is my common, so that goes to ground. That's fine. It's just the green. If I can extend the green, I don't need to extend it a lot then. Because look, it's just too short to go through and come up to our 16 ohm socket. We don't need much. So do I have any appropriately sized green wire in my stash back here? I don't think I will do, because all of the green that I have is usually much thicker. What do we think? Oh, that'll do. So I'm going to strip this back a bit further than usual. Maybe a bit further back than that. We'll strip off 1/2 inch. I think we're going to go for the lineman splice. There is many, many different ways of doing this, but I'm going to show you the way I do it and the way that I find to be easiest. But feel free, if you ever need to extend a wire, to use your own. I'm just going to solder and tin the end. I'm not going to solder all of that. I'm just going to do the, can you see? Yeah. Just going to come and do the end like that, and the same on this one. That's going to stop it becoming untwisted. So you roughly come along halfway down on each side, and then this one is going to go twisty round that way, and this one is going to twist around that way. All right, you see that? And then I'm going to solder that in place. Now here's the thing. Now trim the ends off so you end up with a nice Nice looking join there. Nice and strong. We'll get some heat shrink, long enough to cover that. Feed that over, roughly to the halfway point. There. And get the heat gun on it. Excellent. We're going to twist those two together. We don't want to twist them too tightly though, so we lose length on them. And then this one can come around and twist over them as well. Something like that. And then we might get some heat shrink over that as well. Because this wire, can you see, because this wire, the way it's going to be pulled is going to be rubbing against the edge of the transformer, I just want an extra bit of insulation there. And through we go. Right, so I need to double check the colours. I really don't want to get that wrong. I wrote down that orange was common, yellow was 4 ohm, green was 8 ohm. Remember, we are then going to make that R8 and that one R16. So yellow is to the left, as we thought, green is to the right. Okay, we're nearly there. We really are. There you go. Output sockets wired in. If there's a ground hum, I might swap those out for cliff jacks and ground down at one of the output valve cathodes, or even better over here at my power ground. But it all depends what the noise level is. Quite often these will be absolutely fine in practice. Next job will be heaters. Right, incredibly, we are now at the point where the chassis could be fired up on the bench. Almost. All I've got to do is tie together the grey and violet wires to link this for 240 volt conversion. So I'm going to do that temporarily. I'm not going to do this in a permanent way. So I'm going to leave all these wires completely long, just strip the ends, twist the two together. We'll solder those together and then heat shrink that off. That's easy enough to do. Then we can get this thing over onto the test bench and go through our startup procedure. And I will talk everyone through that process, how I do it, the checks I'm doing, the way I want things to act as I first fire that up, what I expect to see, what I don't expect to see, all that kind of stuff really. So we'll just get that heat shrunk, heat shrinked. Okay, all good. Okay, so as you saw in the time lapse, I did all of my heaters, did the last of my high voltage wires, I did my inputs, the last of my grounds. This amp is now ready for fire up. But you are, I'm afraid, going to have to wait until part 6 of train wrecking for us to fire up that chassis on the bench. Cross all our fingers. Hopefully it works. Catch you at the next one.